now time for us to talk about Anora, 5-time Oscar winner. There's been a lot of discourse over the past 6 months about this film, and obviously we are very late to the fucking party. The term male gaze has been thrown around a lot when talking about this film. And was Anora told through a male gaze? Do scenes revolving around a strip club require a male gaze? Male gaze was first coined in the context of cinema, but now it is a term used when referencing pop culture and aesthetic concepts as well. And did the film director Sean Baker, a cis heterosexual white male, give us an authentic portrayal of sex work? Did he give us a Cinderella story? What can his film tell us psychologically about sex work? Let's get into it.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I'm one of your hosts, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I am a former stripper, if you guys don't know, and I work in social media and marketing.
And I'm your other host, Autumn, like the season. Me too. Also a former stripper, if you guys don't know. And I work in entertainment. By now, odds are that you all are listening to this have seen Anora. It's been out for a very long time. But in the chance that you haven't, we will be talking about everything, including any sort of spoilers for the film. But I think I'm going to kind of explain a little bit about the film if you don't know and don't want to see it. But I think the sort of log line or summary of the film is super interesting. So if you just look it up, it says, Anora, a young woman from Brooklyn, gets her chance at a Cinderella story when she meets and marries the son of an oligarch. Is that how you say oligarch?
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as the parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. So already what stands out to me the most is how it was a Cinderella story and arguably is and was intended to be. So that's definitely noteworthy and something that we're going to talk about a lot.
And it gives away the whole plot. I mean, not the whole thing, but a majority of it. I didn't read that before I watched it, so I didn't know they were going to get married.
Right. No, neither did I, because I didn't want to spoil it for myself, but it's just interesting to me how it's the Cinderella story and the fairy tale-esque is a big thing with this film, and it's just interesting. But basically, if you guys don't want to see the film and want to know real quick what fucking happens, it's basically about a sex worker who meets a client at a strip club, evolves into something more, starts as, having sex for money, then starts into some girlfriend role play for money, which turns into a green card marriage. And this child, 21, he's not a child, but he's 21 years old, bro.
Yep.
And his family freaks out when they find out. They get it annulled. Long story short, she realizes that he did not care about her at all and was like, yeah, this means nothing to me.
He's just a rich kid.
He's just a rich kid. And then, yeah. And I do think it's noteworthy to say that it was shot on 35 millimeter film, which is something that I studied in college. And also, I do feel with the color scheme and just the whole thing, it was giving very much dream-like in a sense, which goes hand in hand with the fairy tale-esque of the film and what it intended to be. So the main characters are Anora, but she goes by Ani, and then we have Vanya, which is the husband, 21-year-old kid, and then we have Igor, who is someone that works for Vanya's dad, and it's very clear that he's working class, so kind of similar status to her in a sense. So first, we just wanted to ask you guys if you saw the movie and if you liked it. And 57% said yes and 43% said no. So basically half and half. And I did like it. Like I watched it twice so I could really like get in there.
Soak it in.
But even like with my past experiences, like I wasn't really triggered like at all. And like there wasn't even that much about the strip club in there. Like it was very much in the beginning. And then obviously it's still about sex work, but like the strip club specifically, there wasn't even that much. Like
wasn't
I was
that
like, damn,
much.
I wish they would go back there and like film some more scenes in the locker room and like all that stuff. But simply, I liked it. How about you?
Yeah, simply, I liked it too. At the beginning, like around like a quarter of the way through the movie to halfway, I didn't know if I liked it. And then by the end of the movie, like by the last, like I was still figuring it out. But like at the beginning, I didn't really like it because I didn't know where it was going. And I was just kind of like, I was getting fairy tale. I was getting like whatever. I was like, okay, but what is the point of this story? But then by the end, I liked it a lot.
Right. And that is a common thread amongst a lot of people that have seen the movie is that ending scene really made it for them. But likewise, a lot of people hated that ending scene. So we're going to get into it. I feel like the part where I kind of got lost is like when they were looking for him and they were just running around to convenience stores and his friends. And I'm like, what are we doing? I
saw listed on Hulu, it's listed as, I think, a drama and a comedy. And I was like, comedy. But I thought that they did the comedic parts like very well because it wasn't like slapstick humor. It wasn't like too much, but it was just the right amount of like softening the tension a little bit to keep you engaged, but not making it like this is stupid, you know?
Right. And the film got applauded for that as well. Like it went back and forth from being really intense and really real to these like funny moments for us to like breathe a little bit, which I think is like a really good use of like storytelling when it's something like really deep and like there are a lot of moments were like very, very intense. So I love that you said that. And a listener actually submitted a story and said, another Pretty Woman movie, boring, glamorized sex work, in my opinion, from an ex-sex worker. And a lot of people compared this to Pretty Woman, and like there's a lot of YouTube videos like what Pretty Woman never could have been, Anora did, and like all of that.
Yeah. I just want to say too, I looked at the Wikipedia page. I wanted to do so much more research on it after I watched the film, but I literally finished it today and I knew we were doing this episode. So, but the Wikipedia page, have you seen Pretty Woman?
I have a long time ago and in a class. So like you get it.
Yeah, because I haven't seen it, but I think it's like known more for playing into the fucked up tropes about like a
right, and she like reluctantly went into it. It wasn't like I have agency, I'm powerful. It was like it was different. It's like those tropes. It's like, oh, like either she finally got out or like she was damaged forever. It's like those are always what it was, and still what it is. But I think like it was glamorized in a sense, like maybe just because it is a film and like the character was like gorgeous and like all that, but it's like she's just a
glamour. Like,
I don't really
with this
either.
Take. I mean, I'm hesitant to disagree with it because I haven't seen Pretty Woman, but I don't think it glamorized sex work because of the ending and because of what. Like, had the fairy tale come true and she stayed married to him and she was rich and like whatever, she escaped the strip club and got married to this rich guy, then yes, maybe it glamorizes, you know, sex work because that's like supposedly every sex worker's dream or whatever. But it's like, I don't think it did that.
Yeah. No, totally. And that's so valid, babe. It's so valid. So hang on to that. But real quick, maybe nobody gives a fuck, but I wrote down some shit while I was watching of things that just like really stood out to me, and they're like super small, but like in terms of like realism and like actual sex work like being portrayed in this movie, like how the strippers were like briefly talking to each other about how weird some of the clients were, like, oh, that man said I looked like his daughter and then got 3 hours of VIP with me. Like that is real shit. Like that actually happens. Love that. And then when they were giving lap dances in that section, and there was this one moment where she like looked at another girl and they like smiled.
Yes,
and, then, like,
they were like,
on.
we're gonna go smoke after. They were like, when we're done. Yeah, yo.
It's so like that happens, so real. And then, like, when she was in VIP with someone and she was like, you can touch me, like, it's okay. Like, I used to definitely say that because you would, like, get someone that comes into the strip club that, like, wasn't a fucking horrible human being and, like, was normal. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, like, you're being so respectful. Like, let's go. Like, you get the extra bonus, my friend, or whatever. But just, like, that sort of language stood out to me. And then the final thing, it's when he was offering for her to be the girlfriend for the week. And he was like, how about 10,000? And she was like, how about 15? Paid up front in cash. And then he was like, and then like, deal. And then she was like, oh, like, I would have done it for 10,000 though. And he was like, oh, well, if I were you, I wouldn't do it for anything less than 30. And then they like laughed about it and like fell into the bed. And like, I just feel like there is a certain vibe when you're like negotiating prices, like with that banter. Like I was like, that's real as fuck. Like I feel like that is so little, but like so real and like really stood out to me. I loved that scene.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the scenes where she was having sex with him and she was like looking like over it when he was like going like hard as fuck, like really fast, and she was like laughing, or like when he came really quick and shit. Like that was also really relatable too.
And then there was this one point where she was like Vanya, like if you just slow down, like it'll feel better and like you can last longer. And then she was like, let me do it. And then he was like, I think I'm in love with you. Like right after she did that. I know, it was crazy. So first, we're going to talk about Sean Baker, who was the director of the film. And he's like a 54-year-old guy, American filmmaker. He's a director, writer, editor, and producer of independent feature films, which are most often about the lives of marginalized people, especially immigrants and sex workers. So he's known to tell stories about sex workers, marginalized groups, in hopes of humanizing them more. Like that's literally what he talks about in all these interviews. Like that's his like intention with his work. And
is his family like Russian immigrants? Does he know someone who's a sex worker? What are his like connections to immigrants?
He doesn't have any.
He just particularly likes those groups. Okay.
Yes, exactly, my love. And I listened to an episode of Rehash, and it was their episode, Why Anora is the Disney Princess We Need. And they had a lot of great sources about like who Sean Baker was, because I feel like at the end of the day, as I mentioned in the beginning, like a big critique of this is about the male gaze. And because it was a man director, people are like, boom, boom, connects the dots, check it off, bitch. Like, it was a fuck. Exactly, bitch. Exactly. So, but anyways, he's known for making films about sex workers, right? Like he's had like 5, Anora, Tangerine, The Florida Project, Starlet, Red Rocket, anywhere from like exotic dancers, porn stars, escorts, like men too, like not just all women, like the trans experience, and things like that. Which Tangerine, did you see that? Or that was something else?
Oh, I had listened to Rehash I think I had listened to an episode where they talked about that.
Yeah, it's 2 trans sex workers named Cindy and Alexandra, and they're like working like in Hollywood, like on the Strip.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's like this is nothing new for this man, like to kind of tell this story. And something that I really like too is like he talks about like, you know, sex workers are neither sinners nor saints. Like we have all these tropes of like, oh, like the hooker, but she has a heart of gold, or like the Madonna whore complex where like she's broken for good. So it's like, and I do think that Ani was not a sinner or a saint. Like I think she did have both going on, which like I appreciated. And also he just pulls a lot of inspo from Italian neorealism, which is like post-war Italy. And it's a documentary-esque focus on the working class. So like that's what he pulls from. But basically from this article from the New Yorker, Anora is a strip club Cinderella story and a farce to be reckoned with. Strip club Cinderella story sounds good.
Crazy.
But they talked about Baker and said, in focusing on a broad swath of sex workers and their hardscrabble realities, odd hours, grueling conditions, treacherous pimps, hostile Johns, non-existent benefits, dressing room squabbles, porn set performance anxieties, Baker has made the case in movie after movie that there is no tougher, more resourceful, and more cruelly stigmatized labor force under the sun. And then from Vanity Fair, Baker has said in interviews that this is a core interest of his, showing sex workers in the so-called real world, properly contextualizing them as not so different from anyone else. It's noble sociological work in some ways. But watching Baker's films, one also may question whether he, a cis, white, straight, prep school educated filmmaker, is the best steward of stories like Tangerine, A Dash Through the Night following two trans sex workers of color as they scramble to keep afloat in Los Angeles. So what do you think about that? Like that whole argument of like why him though? Like why should he be the one having the Oscar winning, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's such a complicated thing. And like, I've thought about this concept a lot before, right? Like, should cis white men be telling stories about like Russian immigrant women? Like, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I don't know. I guess it seems like he's doing his research and he has the budget to do it and the talent. So like, maybe he is lifting up these voices as long as because honestly, when I was watching the movie, and this gives me more respect for it, he did position Ani and the sex work as like work and as like regular. Like it wasn't overly eroticized. There was the male gaze, I think, but because you have to have a male gaze, sex work wouldn't exist without a male gaze. So the idea of, I know we're going to get into that later, so I'll wait. But I think
you're eating.
He did display it as like real regular work when she was like dancing for him, when she had sex with him, when they were negotiating. Like it was like regular, like she does this shit. This is her job. Move on, keep it moving. It wasn't like, I don't know the word, sensationalized. It wasn't sensationalized in the way that even like maybe Hustlers was, you know, that movie.
Yeah, I remember that fucking movie, but I agree. And a lot of people applauded exactly what you're saying. That it's like he has all these intentions. Him and Mikey Madison, who plays Ani, like went to interview strippers and sex workers and went to clubs and like did all,
she learned how to dance from them.
She learned how to dance, the pole, all of that. The nails she talks about was like a whole thing. Like that was very specific, like the whole experience. But it's like, I'd be lying to say it's like, I think past me might be like, well, it doesn't matter though, because it doesn't matter how much research he does. Like, how can he really tell that story for real? But what had helped me was this next article. And this basically was a collection of thoughts from different sex workers sharing their thoughts about Anora. And to this exact point about Sean Baker and like, should he be the one to do it? Someone said, in an ideal world, sex workers would make our own movies, and we do. There are sex worker film festivals in many major cities, but we also need mainstream representation to combat the stigma that allows people to vilify and murder us. In an industry in which you have to keep what you do a secret for safety and legal reasons, and the only people who know how nuanced your work is, clients, are silent about their support for fear of stigma. It feels good to have someone with power like Baker throw his weight behind us. And when I read that, I was like, shit. Because, it's like, and I just like, in an ideal world, yes, like it wouldn't be him. But like,
maybe he is a client. I didn't even think about that could be his connection to it, because it's like, I was watching a video essay. I forget who it was by. It was someone that you've used as a source before in one of our episodes, but she was talking about the Bob House. You? Yeah, you. She was talking about the Bob House, and she was talking about sex work, and she's a former sex worker as well. And she was just saying like how mad people are about it. But like, we have to like appreciate this too, because it is the first time that like Bop House sex workers like are being seen in the media like at all as like regular jobs, like that kind of thing. And that's this too. So it's like, yes, ideally sex workers or former sex workers could make their own stories in like the industry and get Oscars and all of that, but we're not quite there yet. So there needs to be these like white men in power that do it first. And like, is he gonna make mistakes? Yeah, but at least it seems like he's taking like advice, and like, not, if he is a client and if he's out with that, that would make me respect him like so much more.
Yeah you know, totally. And so I feel like that just like really hit home for me. Like, it's like the equity thing as well. It's like, you do need people to like bat for you that are in that position of power, because like you can only do so much. But yeah, I just think that's like a learning moment, like for me specifically. Like, two things could be true. Like, yes, maybe he's not like the perfect one, but like right now, it's like we need him to like do that. And just going back to what you said about how like the strip club, like it wasn't sensationalized. Like I just like, I had a really hard time. I feel like I'm so clouded and I expect it to be glamorized and sexualized and all that stuff that I'm just like, oh yeah, it is. But it's like, it wasn't. Like, it was like, and I feel like that's so hard to do. Yeah. In a place where like patriarchy is upholding the literal poles. Like, I don't know, because there was a lot of like shots where it's like the moving camera. I don't know what it's called, and it was like, but it's like a wide like shot. The beginning, and it's like spanning.
Yeah, the beginning when they were all doing the lap dances, and they were topless and like whatever. But
I loved that.
That's why I'm like, you cannot show a strip club on film without the male gaze, because it's like literally how, like, I just don't understand how you could do that.
I know. I don't either. And it's like, maybe you can, but it's not going to be authentic, because that's not what it's like. And it's like, are there like, you know, queer people going to the club for VIPs? Yeah, like there definitely is. But at the end of the day, it's a very like male, like it was built for literal men. It's a
male-centered,
Like at the end of the day, like that is what we're working with here. So yeah, anyways, okay. We're already talking about it. We're going to get into the male gaze. And I watched Jordan Teresa's video, Anora and the Myth of the Male Gaze. And I kind of came to the same conclusion as she did, in that maybe we've lost what the male gaze really is. Where did the male gaze start? And like, what does that look like now, sort of thing? And so we know that, you know, the male gaze is feminist theory. And it's Laura Mulvey who wrote the essay. I'll put it on the screen: Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. And so it started like in movies and film, and it was like, you know, men film women, how, you know, they are just something to be looked at, they objectify them, and like all of that sort of stuff. But now it's like, the male gaze could be a fashion trend, like dressing for the male gaze, dressing for the female gaze, doing my makeup for the male gaze. And Jordan Teresa was like, but you guys are just like saying like the male gaze is like a really cut shirt and your titties are out. And then the female gaze is like you in like baggy pants. And it's like, what are we saying though?
You know what I think like, was like an example of the female gaze low key that Anora did really well? Like, you know, the scenes of Igor when he was looking at her, like how it kept cutting to him and his like sympathy and empathy for her towards the end. Yeah. I think that was like the female gaze. Because you know, when you're a woman and you can feel a man looking at you, or you can feel their emotions for you or their attraction to you or something like that, like they're not good at hiding it. Like the way that the camera like caught that, and the way that she was probably experiencing it in that moment, like, because remember she was like, you have rape eyes or whatever, and we couldn't really figure out what his vibe was. We were like, does he want to like rape her? Does he want to assault her? Is he on her side? Is he empathetic? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it caught that female gaze, that female interpretation so perfectly, I think.
Right. But like, I would argue that he like did assault her. Do you think he did?
No.
When?
Like,
when she was like, her hands were tied and he was like behind her.
I mean, I don't think that he should have done that, no. But I think like she was like crashing out, like she didn't know what was going on. Like, I don't know.
Because I kind of feel like he did. Like, was it like we're like on the scale? But I'm like, it doesn't matter.
I think he just held her back.
Right.
Like,
it's
he was trying to get her to stop.
Phone cord was like a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot. But she also did kick the dude and break his nose. You know what I'm saying? So
which I'm like, valid.
Which was valid as fuck because she didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Right. And like, who this guy was.
Just like she's tough from the strip club and like that type of work that she does, he's tough from being the like henchman that he's supposed to fucking be. And so like, I think in his way, he was being as gentle as possible as he could be with her, given the line of work he's fucking in. You know what I'm saying?
And I also think like what the director, like Sean Baker, did a good job of is like, to be a stripper and a sex worker and a good one, like a successful, empowered one, you have to have like so much control like over your body.
Yeah.
And they talk about this in a New Yorker article that like we'll cite a little bit later. But it's like he also showed that it's like, and also her self-defense is like kick ass.
Yeah.
Bro. Like she was like, and it's like, oh, is it believable that like she could beat these two like fucking Hulk men up? But it's like, I think it is. And I think like they didn't go in wanting to hurt her as of like what you're saying. Like it wasn't like, it's like she crashed out and then they were like, oh shit, we need to adjust.
Because they were like tweaking and like, you have to get your marriage annulled.
Right.
And she's
and
like,
she
what
was
are you
scared.
talking
But
about? But she didn't know at that point that Vanya was part of the bad guy in the situation. Like she thought like they were being attacked, like whatever. So it was like,
It was crazy. But the self-defense was on 10. Like she was like kicking, biting, like it was a great scene. But back to the male gaze, Jordan Teresa thinks that people saying like Anora is super male gazy is an empty and reductive critique. And we asked you guys, do you think Anora catered to the male gaze? And 55% said yes and 45% said no. I think yes, absolutely. I think the male gaze was in there, but I don't think that's all that was there, at all. And I don't think no, wait,
because catered to the male gaze? You think it catered to the male gaze? No,
I think like some of the shots like in the strip club and like of her body are shots that like men would like for sure. But I don't think this movie was for men. I don't.
Yeah, I think it was. When they used the male gaze, I think it was on purpose in scenes that were like the strip club, or it was Vanya watching her when like she's doing her job for him. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think it was like the entire movie was through a male gaze.
Or like the intentional male gaze of like how you see like Megan Fox's characters, like that stereotypical example.
Reason.
It was different. It's because it's context and we're talking about sex work and we're in a strip club. So yes, to tell that story accurately, there's going to be a male gaze, but like whether or not like it catered to it and was like trying to be that sinister male gaze that like the word actually is, no, I don't think it did.
Yeah.
And then we asked you guys, is it possible to tell authentic stories in strip clubs without the male gaze at all? And 55% said yes, 45% said no. I think we've made it clear that you do need a little bit of that.
This one pissed me off. Like, this question.
Pissed? Okay, I know.
Because I'm like, guys, like, I don't know if, and I don't want to be a bitch and be like,
the meaning of the word.
Yeah, we've lost the meaning of the word. I think it's this whole decenter men era right now, which again, we have our mixed feelings about. And like everyone is going like so far off the deep end with like what the male gaze is, but it's like, guys, like and I was thinking about this so much the other day because I hung out with this girl who used to be a stripper too. And I was just like laughing because the way that she moves around like the bars and stuff, and like with guys, is the way that I do, which is and you too, which is very like flirty, like for no reason. And just like we're at the club, like we're at the strip club,
it's
and like
nature.
It's like exactly, and a lot of women would be like, oh, you're a male-centered woman, or you're appealing to the male gaze, or you're doing this or you're doing that. But it's just like, I don't see it that way. I see it as like she's a hustler. Like I was like, bro, like this bitch is baller. Like I love her for doing that, and I feel like more comfortable with you because like I get it. But like a lot of people right now specifically are like, fuck the male gaze, fuck male-centered women. And we don't know what we're talking about. Because again, then you're discounting the profession of this job and the hustle that comes from acting that way. But
right. Oh my God. No, I seriously couldn't like agree more. And I feel like something Jordan talked about too is like, people have made the male gaze like about like themselves, like in terms of like what they wear, like how they move in relationships and all that. And like, I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's like you still have to like connect back to like what the origins of it like actually means, you know?
Right.
So yeah. And then similarly, we asked you guys, would sex work exist without the male gaze? 29% said yes, and 71% said no. I mean, I feel like, yeah, like it's definitely, it wouldn't work, guys. Or,
how? Like,
right.
How would it work without the male? These polls, I was like, are we like dumb? Like, I'm sorry, guys, but like, I'm just confused. Like, if you voted the opposite way in these polls, I'm not trying to come at you right now, but please like explain a little bit more in the comments because I am genuinely confused.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it either. But we are going to watch this TikTok next, and this is a person making the argument that Anora is very male gazy and like not in a good way.
Okay.
Comfort toy. This is a good one. I've never done a video like this before. Try this because I have to get this off my chest. Here's why I think Anora betrays us. This movie was directed by a man. Felt like it was very male gazy, and as an audience we see what's going on, but we see it through this like A.I.R character. We're basically seeing what she's going through but through his eyes, and the focus will camera focus will rack to his eyes looking at her. If you've seen this film, I recommend to see it again and start to really notice all the moments that she is going through an emotional arc. And every time she does, the camera will focus on either the Russian kid that she's slowly falling in love with or A.I.R. All the scenes where Anora is alone, she's either sleeping or her back is turned to the camera. All the other scenes, she's with a man. And most of the time, we are seeing her like coping of what's going on through the man's eyes. And every time it's A.I.R looking at her in the car, it's A.I.R looking at her in the room, it's A.I.R looking at her while she's signing the divorce papers. All of the emotional moments, like a pivotal, important arc moment for her character, it pivots to A.I.R looking at her every single time. And that's what I mean when it's male gazy. It's like we are never alone with her. We're never processing the emotion with her.
Okay, guys, so I think we already know that I disagree with this based on what I already said. But I just want us to like think about what the male gaze is again. The male gaze is a male gazing at a woman. So if it was through the male gaze, we would be looking at Anora, Ani more, right? The fact that we are looking at A.I.R means it is a female gaze because we are looking at what she is looking at, and we are looking at her we are experiencing it similar to how she's experiencing it. This take is trash. I'm sorry, it's trash.
I know. And I think, I forget where I read it, where I heard it, but it was like people wanted her to have like some sort of intimate moment like with the camera, like something like an internal sort of moment for her that didn't have to do with Vanya, Igor, what's his face?
But she had that at the end. And my argument too is like, when you are a sex worker, when you are a stripper, you are constantly like, you know how you're being perceived by men at all times. So like, we got that feeling in the film. Like, she's having Vanya perceive her. She's having Igor perceive her. She knows, like when she said the rapey eyes thing, she's like, she can never experience a connection with a man without thinking that it's like he wants something like sexual from her, right? And so at the end, when she like goes to even make that sexual like move or whatever, and then has that emotional response, it's because like she realizes like how like genuine he was, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, that is the moment. And it's like, okay, everyone wants to be mad that it's like she's experiencing it with a man, but like, I find it healing. Like, I watched that scene, like, I would love to have a moment like that. Like, that shit made me bawl my eyes out. Like,
yeah. And I think it's like, you really nailed it when you said people are so in the like decenter men space. And that's why they're like, but she can't have that moment with a man, though. Like, it can't be about him at all. But it's like, it's not about him, though. It's not. Like, it could have been any man that made her feel a little bit safer and like seen a little bit more. Yeah. It's not about him, you know?
And he gave her the ring. Like, when he gave her the ring back, and then her immediate, like, bro, it was so relatable, because it's like, this man does something, like, he genuinely cares about her. He does something like so nice, like give her the ring back, which he didn't have to do. Like, she just went through all this shit. That ring cost a shit ton of fucking money.
Could have got his head chopped off to get it.
And then her impulse, like, is to like go into like stripper like work, because she, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're paying for something. And then she has this deep moment of like intimacy with him because he genuinely cared about her. And that was like crazy. Like, I just thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful too. I really did. And I don't agree with the people saying that it's male gazy. I think they're thinking about something else that's not actually the male gaze that you like painted out perfectly. Like, it's about that point of view. And actually the fact that we didn't see her reactions the most was because we were looking through her eyes, or that's what like we were supposed to be doing.
Watching a male gaze, like a Igor gazing at Anora, is not the male gaze. You guys don't know what the male gaze is.
Right. Like, it's like her like titties out, like certain
it would be
angle.
Like focused on her body. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yeah, like, and in the strip club, we got that because that's what the strip club is men looking at you on stage and you're stripping. Anyways, it's just, yeah, it's absolutely wild. But Jordan Teresa definitely agrees with what we're saying. And she's like, just because some women have jobs where they're sexualized or they have to sexualize themselves doesn't mean their stories, you know, don't deserve to be told. And she's like, yeah, these strip club scenes felt male gazy because they are for men's pleasure. That is what it's for. And she said, you know, Ani has an outspoken, bold personality. And this was like also another trend. People talking about her outspokenness, and like her sort of like charisma in a way too. And like, she was bold with it. Like, she did have dominant energy. Yeah. Like, she was like, sit on your hands. Yeah. Fucker. Like, that's another thing I used to say too. Like, sit on your fucking hands. Yeah. Like, so, yeah. And then she was like, it's so clear to me, Jordan Teresa saying that Ani is so much more than a stripper. Like, that's her job, but she's so much more than that. And in light of saying, like, you know, sex work is work. And like, that's what, you know, that's like the key to kind of like getting on the right side, is like just looking at sex work as work and not like a tragedy of Jesus, right? And she's like, you know, the kind of more female gaze stuff was like when she was like eating her lunch out of a container and the guy was like, come on, there's people upstairs with money. She's like, no, I'm eating lunch right now. Yeah. There was like petty arguments with co-workers. Like when she was like, you can't tell me when to work until you get me a 401k health insurance. Like there was like work shit
when she
in
was
there.
Blowing the bubble of gum, when she was like giving him a lap dance, like all the shots of her face when she was just like bored, like whatever, like
Right. And that's like literally how it is. And like sometimes she would be like smiling and like laugh. Like I feel like a lot of laughter goes on in the strip club because like we all know what we're doing here, you know? And it's like funny. Like it's funny a little bit. And like you got to like loosen up. So there's a lot of like laughter. And I feel like what I want to continue to talk about in this episode is like, is that like professional client relationship? Because I think it's so interesting. And I think the way it's talked about is not really how it really is. Like that moment when he was like, bitch, I wouldn't have done it for any less than 30K. Like, what are you doing? Like, that was funny.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we've already been talking about it, but we are going to specifically talk more about this ending scene. And I did find a clip of the actual scene on TikTok. So I don't know if we're going to get copyrighted, but let's play it.
Yes.
So as you can imagine, people, I got a lot of thoughts about this ending scene. You know what I mean? Like for me watching the movie, I was like, strip club, hot, like we're working. Oh my God, like cosplaying girlfriend, like rich parties. And then when shit started getting dark and they were looking for him, I was like, all right, like I don't know if I'm like, this is a lot. But then this scene comes and you just wake the fuck up. And it's like, it's about, there's like 3 minutes left in the movie and like this like scene happens. Like I think it's like just a really powerful way to like end the film.
Yeah.
Like based on all the chronicles of events. But Vanity Fair like put out an article. Like I like Vanity Fair. I don't fucking care what anyone says. But basically, a quote says, Ani tells Igor that she's sure he would have raped her had they been alone. That was crazy. Not crazy and that she said it, but like a moment.
And that scene was so needed because we did not know. And then when he said with his straight face, I'm not a rapist, like it was like I believed him, like because at first I was like, I don't know, Igor, what are we doing? Like
that's what I'm saying. Like at first I was like, no, like he is a fucking like he assaulted her, bro.
Right?
Like
right?
Why was he so? But yeah, but then it's like they started. He was like, oh, my car is from my grandma, and then you like warm up to him a little bit. Like
no, when he asked Vanya to apologize. Remember when they were at?
Oh my God! Thank you. Yeah, that was huge. Yeah. And that's similar to like him getting the ring back, like doing what he can do. He's like, you know what? Like I work for these people. They have billions of dollars. But if I can just ask and maybe try, like that's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And, like that was so fucking powerful. And like you could see it on her face. She was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, those fucking parents, bitch.
Yeah,
I was like, my
bitches.
son's not going to apologize. Like your son's a fucking pussy ass bitch. Yeah. But anyways, the article says right when they said that, like this arrives right after some guarded flirtation that happened in the gaps between Ani's reminders that she has been assaulted. Through Igor dismisses the idea that he is a would-be rapist, something sinister hangs in the air. Maybe this is the manifestation of a constant threat faced by sex workers, a nagging but practical suspicion about what men, be they clients or captors, might be capable of. If Anora is meant to end with the uneasy budding of a new romance, it does so with no small amount of reservations. Igor may play down Ani's fears, but I'm not entirely sure Baker is doing the same. And I feel like, yeah, like the part about like maybe this is a manifestation of like that constant threat that you feel. And that's, I think, what you were saying, where you're like, that conversation was like so important, because yeah, it feels like if no one else was in that room, like you would have like killed me and raped me. Like,
and I was
know.
like, the fact that like, and it's not like he let her go upstairs, right? Like, I want to be careful about the language, but like, I was like, what's about to happen? Are they going to fuck at this house tonight? Is he going to go upstairs with her? Like, there was like this looming weirdness, but like when he brought her home, brought the bags upstairs, gave her the ring, and then she stayed in the car. She could have gotten out. Like, she was like, I'm staying in this car. She took her stuff off. Like, she wanted to with him. Like, she made the first like move. It wasn't him being weird or whatever. He was very respectful. So, you know.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like that scene, like the home invasion scene, like definitely could have been a lot worse with like the kind of like rich people and their money and like their kids. Like that's not something you like mess with. And they obviously like, not Igor, but like looked at her like she was just an escort and like a whore and like worth nothing. That it's like, you can imagine like, what if shit did get more violent? Like, would it have gotten more violent like in reality? And like, why did he choose to make that like border, like teetering on those lines of like comedy and like really serious? Like, did she just get assaulted? And you kind of question it, you know? It's like all of these choices. There's anything I learned in film school, nothing is an accident, folks. So it's interesting to think about. And also, lastly, they just continued in the article to say, that's why Ani cries in Igor's car at the end of the film, because she dared to let herself believe that the good could be true, that her ship had come in, that something like love and safety may have presented themselves to her in the most unexpected of ways. But I think it was more than that too. I think it was a lot more than that. I think it more so had to do what you were talking about, like just that like tendency to like be transactional and like not know how to like look at relationships like the right way, quote unquote, because there isn't like a right way.
And that's why I feel like it was almost symbolic that like Igor, that she was fighting back so hard and he was holding her back in that way and didn't hurt her, because it was almost like she could let out all of this like anger and frustration and like, what the fuck is this situation going, like what is happening right now? And then like when she did cry at the end and he just like held her and stuff, it was like she could be like a full real human. Like, and he said, you're a warrior, you know, like you put up a good fucking fight, but like I've got you. Like he held it down. And I think like she didn't have anyone else really around her. Like her mom lives in Miami with her man, like her sister's kind of a bitch. Like you got the feeling that she was very independent, and Vanya was the first person that she could like leave this strip club life, have this fairy tale, and that was ripped away from her. So now she's like about to face going back to her real fucking life. And then Igor like gives her the space to emotionally like grieve that situation. You know?
Right. Finally. And it's like she had been holding on. Like she has such a tough exterior because of what she's been through and because she has to. And so it's like he clearly provided a safe space for her to be able to even do that. Like that's not just possible like with anyone. And that can also just add to like why like he needed to be there too. Like maybe she couldn't have let those emotions out without like that weirdness kind of happening, where like he gave the ring and she immediately went to like say thank you in a way, but also maybe kind of likes him, but also he tied her up with a fucking, you know, like it's confusing. So, but yeah, like
it's like sexual tension, like some like
no, yeah, and
CNC
everyone like
shit, like
right. No, dude, yeah, like yeah, I know. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, Igor is so fucking sexy. And like, I'm not going to go there because it's so much more meaningful to me than like, you know, that's such a me thing to do, is just like sexualize the character, want the love story to work out. But he is hot. No, he definitely is. Like I was thinking it for sure. Yeah. But like also I'm just like, I don't know. Like
it was beautiful. It was too beautiful. Yeah.
It was just like something that I feel like a lot of women, even that aren't sex workers, like need to like do.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because, and that's another thing about Sean Baker is like, yes, he writes about these like specific like marginalized groups and like what they go through, but like in a way that like it can be kind of relatable to anyone and like in a different way, you know? So I think that's really cool. And then under Rehash's episode on YouTube, somebody commented and said, Anora's ending is one of my favorite film endings ever. It perfectly conveys the feeling of coming back down to the soul-crushing reality that you live in for so long. You become numb to it. When you're pulled out of said reality, you feel euphoric and unstoppable. So to be brought back to that reality is one of the worst fates. Ani is a deeply real, relatable character. See?
Yes.
Like, relatable and also powerful.
Yep.
Okay? So lastly about this whole sort of ending scene, back to the article that had the collection of stories from different sex workers talking about Anora. They were talking about that part we keep referring to when Igor's like, here's the ring. And she's like, oh my God, like that, you know, wasn't expecting that. She clearly was not expecting that. And it was like very traumatic, the whole ring thing. They took it off her finger and she was like placed into the couch and her hands were behind, like she couldn't do anything. I think like any sort of like restraining, like where like anyone's holding someone down, to me, like that's just like so scary. So I think that's why I'm like, he assaulted her, because to restrain someone where like, oh my God, like I think that's just up there for me. Like I really don't like that. Obviously nobody does, but it's anyways. Okay. Yeah. So they're talking about Igor giving her the ring. And then they said she is moved by the gesture, and so she does what she knows how to do. Attempts to seduce him to express her gratitude. Igor melts.
That's like so real. Like,
I know.
Attempting to seduce someone to express your gratitude. I'm like, bro, like when she went to do that, and like okay.
I know. In the way that like, and this is gonna sound so corny, but like the way that we can convey these things in films, like that little moment, and it like represent, like that's why, like it takes a lot. Like when we make our show, it's like people think about this shit for decades. I'm like, not like, or not always, but you know what I mean? Like it's so, and everybody got that. Like everybody talks about that scene. It's like everybody got it. No, that's crazy. But Igor melts a bit at first, but as things escalate, he stops her by grabbing her and holding her body still, as if to say, you don't get to do that with me. He demands to see the real her, not the performance. He looks at her until the mask of persona drops, the inevitable falling apart that Ani is due given everything she has been through, that anyone who sees her as a real person and not a sexual service animal knows is beneath the surface. She collapses into his arms and we fade to black. And they said, even though that this does occasionally happen in the real world, a far more accurate and relatable ending would have been Ani returning to the club to see her best friend to get a pep talk, or stealing the ring herself and buying a car or a condo. At least take the ring from Igor and pay your rent, Ani. To me, this is the part that Baker will never fully understand. Clients are a means to an end. Money will never break your heart. Which I feel like I respect that. And I don't like disagree. Like I do feel like, unfortunately, in these situations, like, yeah, maybe just having to go back to the strip club. But I also think like, let's not rob like her of like a love story, because you also don't see like sex workers like, you know, fall in love in this sort of movie, but in a really weird like not with Vanya, but like with this new Igor guy at the end, because they actually, so I feel like I like want to hold space for that. Like I feel like any like past sex worker is going to react a certain way to this on their experience. Like how could you not? You know what I mean? And part of me was like, this would never happen in my club. There were no oligarch sons popping in, but in the big clubs in Vegas and even in LA, even like that can happen. I was telling you
that I'm friends with, like she's a former stripper who has been with a guy for 2 years that she met in the club and now doesn't have to work. Her life is taken care of and she loves him and they are together and it does happen. But I think like going back to the beginning when we talked about this being a fairy tale, like exactly, like the part about like meeting a man that sees the real you after you've been through some trauma with another man in the strip club and like whatever, like that part of things is a fairy tale in a lot of senses. And like it is healing to like, remember when we talked about like romance stories and dark romance, how it's like an escape, it's a fantasy, it's not necessarily like something that's realistic. Like I don't want to watch the film where she has to go back and do, I want to watch the fantasy of the fact that she gets the happy ending,
right?
You know,
and it's like happy ending is loose because let's talk about what actually happened,
right?
You know what I mean? Like she's not okay, clearly, you know what I mean? Whether it works out with Igor or not, like she's not like happy at the end of the movie,
and she has to go back to work with that, or probably not because she probably like, can't go back to work there. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just like, I don't think it was like this huge happy ending. Like, I think it was like a breakthrough for her or like a moment, but it's not like they like went into the sunset and have a yacht. Like, they're still like, you know?
Right.
So I'm like, let's just and I just feel like there's going to be a million different versions to the story, but like I do think like I agree with his choices, and it wasn't like an easy love story. Like it's fucking weird. Like he just invaded her. Like what so yeah, I think it's layered and nuanced enough. I don't think we need to just go back to the club. So now we're going to move into, was this truly a Cinderella story? Because it was very much advertised as such and intended to be so, as we have seen from the logline in the beginning of the episode. And even Rehash titled their episode, Anora is the Disney princess we need. And echoing
Disney's
that, there was
pushing it.
No, okay, because I'm like, if we could just be real for a second, like, I feel like we just have to wait. Let me just get through this. The New Yorker put out an article, Anora is a strip club Cinderella story. We already looked at it, but they literally said, Ani is a strip club Cinderella saddled with the froggiest of princess, but she is also granted an Igor, the unlikeliest of white knights. Like the verbiage of the princess is like princesses sing. Mm-hmm. So what I want to talk about with me and you is Anora a Cinderella story? Was it ever really going to be that? And did she like Vanya or no?
No. I don't think she
didn't
liked
like him. Right.
I don't think she liked him that much because like she was never looking like she was engaged in the sex with him. But I don't know though, because at one point when they started to slow it down and then like, you know what, I was like maybe, but I think she just liked the lifestyle, but like he was always giving like little kid.
Always. And she definitely wasn't being pleasured in like the sex they had, like not in the same way.
And when he was playing video games and she would be laying on him, she just looked like not pleased.
Yeah, and so it's like the Cinderella story is with Igor then, if we can establish that it's definitely not.
Is it the lifestyle? Like, was it the Cinderella story is the prince and the lifestyle and the riches, but then the true love story at the end is Igor.
Right, but it was never Vanya. Like
there was never love there.
He was like hilarious.
He was so. I was like, who is this?
I was like, bro,
Russian child.
And the scene where she like, first of all, the scene where she dances for him.
Which one?
How she looked, babe.
Oh my God, she looked incredible when she was like upside down, like backwards.
Oh,
yeah.
And then
with
it cuts to him being like,
he was like, yeah, with the Russian like rap music on. Like it was crazy. It was completely transactional, but I feel like it's like she didn't hate him though, you know? Like she kind of looked at him like, oh, there. Like, I'm going to show you a great time. And like, that is like very much what that relationship can be like. And I would rather that than like some horrible person. Like at the end of the day, like he was like,
she was like 3 carats and he was like, how about 6? Like he was like.
And there was a maturity gap because remember when she was only 2 years older than him. But remember he was like, how old are you? And she was like 23 and he was like, oh, I thought you were 25. Like it was very much giving like she was like not big sister, little brother energy, but like
type
kind
shit.
of. Yeah.
No, literally, like in that sort of relationship way, like not in an incest way at all. But to me, like the Cinderella story, even between her and Igor, like even from that last scene, like to me, it's like, this is like inner. Like I got it from like inner story. Like it's about her, which is so funny because literally so many people online are like male gaze. Like why was he there in that scene? It's not about her. We don't know enough about her. But to me, like he was just like, he was like part of the chair in that scene to me. Like I was like fully locked in and like feeling her emotions and what she was going through. Yeah. To me, it wasn't even so much about their quote unquote Cinderella story.
Yeah. Like she could, could leave that car and she could say goodbye to Igor forever. And it still would have had the exact same impact.
Babe, I love you so much. And I didn't see that anywhere. And I saw a lot of critiques like about this guy, what's his name? Fucking Sean Baker. Across all films, characters lack interiority. Ugh. Did you know what that means? I didn't. I kind of did, but I looked it up. And it's like that inward shit. Like we didn't get enough of them. And I just like...
Because what do you want them to have an inner monologue that we're like hearing as they're going through the events?
I think
like,
they do.
We need to have, like, you're supposed to pick it up by what's happening. Like you need empathy.
I will say, like I do wish that maybe I knew more about like Ani's like hopes and dreams of what she wants, but then I'm like, but that's kind of anti-sex work though. Like she is a sex worker. That is what she wants. Like she's happy with it. Like what she wants is like a beautiful, fulfilling life with like real love and like you know, like money and that's okay. Like yes, that's capitalistic, but it's like that's how the fucking oligarchs were too. Like they're not that different. Like so but yeah, and I just really disagree with that, and I was scared to see how you felt because I'm telling you, babe, like people think like we didn't know enough about her, like blah 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 blah.
But I did feel that way the first half of the movie until she started crashing out. And then until the last scene carried the entire thing because I did not know where it was going, what the point was. Until that last scene, like that made up for everything else because it was like exactly, it almost makes you question like, well, do we need to see more of her in order to humanize her as a sex worker or a stripper? Like, does the movie need to do all of that extra work in her character? Or can we just like, we should be able to get that anyway. And that last scene, like you get that, like, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it's like she did have like a tough exterior throughout. And like I found myself being like, oh, like what is she like really thinking? And like even like the first time she went over to Vanya's and she immediately like took off her clothes and was like, do you want to take yours off? Like part of me was like, damn, like is it really like that? Because like in my experience, like it was like you have a drink first, like you like ease into it, but she was like straight to business, bitch. But I was like, maybe it is like that, like when it comes to escorting, like I really don't know. But like
well, I think so. What?
No, it's just funny. Like it was very much like right to business, but I'm like maybe because it's like she pays by the hour. It's like she didn't really want to be there. It's like let's fuck so I can leave.
Well, and I think it's also the whole like she's not a sinner or a saint either in this because even though she was duped in the sense that like she thought she was getting married, she was getting this like fairy tale life, whatever. Like she was very clearly like more mature than him, and like you could see her being naive when she was like, God, like shut up, like don't lie, like you really want to marry me, like are you sure, like whatever, like she did believe it, but it almost is to a certain degree like you know how we saw how immature Vanya was throughout this show, and like she kind of let herself get like lost in the riches, wrapped up and like forget almost that like this is a rich kid like partying and like this was never going to be the fairy tale that like you thought it would be.
And she never took him serious. Like he was always, she's like, what are you interested? And he's like, special sex. Like, and she's like, okay. Like it was the whole time. It was just like that. And so I think that was the most confusing part of the film for me. I was like, well, why did she care so much that they were gonna not be together? Like, she doesn't really love him, but it was about like the lifestyle, and she maybe never thought that she would ever be married. Like, maybe that's something she's like really wanted, like forever.
And that's the work that I think that people are like, where is her internal complex interior? It's that like, whatever it was with Vanya, she wanted an escape from the world that she was living in, and she wanted the riches. Like, she wanted to like,
and she got it
at home with him.
Yeah, she got it, and then she immediately was like, it was being threatened to being taken away from her in like a very violent and scary way.
Yeah.
You know, but so yeah, that's really interesting. So it's like, yeah, that was the most confusing part about it for me, but it's like, that's all about her and like what she's thinking. So if we're walking away from the movie like thinking more about her, then like that's a good thing, you know? And then another thing about the whole Cinderella story, under Rehash's podcast episode on YouTube, someone said, I know sex workers and not all of them are cynical and jaded. Many of them would want to believe they're finally getting their Cinderella story. Anora never really believes that they're in love, but she does believe that the marriage is real and she is finally free. So she desperately holds on to the idea that Yvonne has some common decency and will take care of her. And I will say, I don't agree with the thing that she's finally free. I don't think they ever showed us anything about her like not liking her job.
Don't know. Because at the end when she's like, you know, her best friend at the strip club, and they're like, oh, like, you're leaving, and then the bitch is like, oh, I give it 2 weeks. It's going to last 2 weeks. Like her other friend is like very happy for her. So I feel like her friend being happy for her is doing the work of like, oh, you made it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then the other bitch is like mad. So I think it gives a little bit of like, okay, you made it out of like, maybe not just a strip club, like you hate it there, but like that, like your sister's place, like you don't have to worry about like working in the same way as much.
I think maybe like I was projecting a little bit because like to me, like especially in the beginning, it seemed like she was like genuinely happy with the job. And I'm just like, oh, yes, like we're, you know, but it's like the reality is anyone fully happy doing that job? Like it's hard. Is anyone fully happy doing any job? No. So it's the same thing, but yes. Okay. And then lastly, they said she is from the generation that grew up seeing modern Cinderella stories in movies that make us think this is the dream. And so she lets herself get hopeful. She's not stupid, just hopeful.
That is so true. Like cause like her being 23 and like right now the whole like
so young.
Yeah, but like a guy needs to pay for your everything. Like that is a big soft girl life. Like that is such a trend right now that like, yes, it is the Cinderella story for a 23-year-old.
Bro, I'm telling you, the YouTube comments, people need to start publishing articles. Like, people really eat in YouTube comments a lot of the time. And sometimes, like, I, like, my, like, bad research skills, like, I forget to look. And sometimes, like, the comments are, like, the most interesting part of, like, what people took away from it. But yeah, and I think that's probably why a lot of people ate this movie up too, is because everyone does like sort of like, that's not my dream, you know? Like I really don't want all those riches like that. And for someone to just give me everything, like that makes me like literally uncomfortable.
Yes.
But like, I like get it. Like it is modern day Cinderella story. Anyways, so getting into our last section here, as we know, Sean Baker's motivation with all of his films, and Anora definitely be included, is to humanize sex workers and marginalized groups, like even just lower class, like working people, things like that. So what did this film tell us about sex work, if anything at all? We asked you guys. Do you think Anora gave an honest portrayal of what it can look like to be a sex worker? And again, you guys, like the 50-50.
The 50-50.
But 45% said yes and 55% said no. I did. Like, I think, like, honestly, it's like it could look like so many different things is what I'm like gathering. But overall, like, do I think it had authentic representation? Like, I do think that.
Yeah, I think so too, besides the whole marrying Vanya situation. The, like, him coming in and, like, sweeping her off her feet. Like, that is much more rare. But the, like, her actually at the club working was accurate. Yeah.
And I do think it's more rare for, like, because it's, like, the common stripper is not working at the places where, like the rappers go. But, like, it does happen. Like, if you're at those clubs, like, you never know. Like, everyone goes to the strip club, and, like, that can, like, very well happen for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be interested to see a film more about, like, the everyday stripper. Like, you just go to work, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's obviously like a film and all of that, but I agree. And I do want us to talk a little bit more about the professional and client relationship, like when it comes to sex work, like nothing like crazy, but like if you want to share anything, like I feel like for me, like it's varied a lot. Like I feel like I've made like almost like a genuine like friendship with people.
Yeah.
Like we're on the same page. And then I feel like sometimes it was like I was talking to a wall. Sometimes it's completely silent. But like there's so many of that. And even in Rehash's podcast episode, they pointed out how like Ani would code switch depending on what man she was talking to or what client. But everything was always like directed towards the ATM and directed towards the VIP, which is true. Like that is literally like what we're there to do. But I just think like the relationship is like interesting and like people always picture some like scary man that's like and like whatever, but like sometimes it's like chill, you know
sometimes
what I mean? Like sometimes
playful.
It is giving Vanya
and it's friends. Like I feel like the ones that I can think about that actually made me the most money, it was like friendly and it was like, you know why you're here. I know why you're
like,
here.
Like we're not really
let's make
playing
a deal.
The game. Yeah, let's make a deal. No, literally that. And like it's like genuinely like there was this one regular that would come to the club like in California and like I would be excited to see him like for real. Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to have an easier night. Like he's going to take care of me financially and like I can just be myself. Like I don't have to try any new tricks. Like, you know,
Yep.
And it's just like it can be like that. And I don't know. So I did like how it was like it can be Vanya, like a young kid that's like stupid. Like that happens all the time. Like
yeah.
So and then I did appreciate Rehash did talk about this. And Baker has said that he is very much interested in the relationship between the professional and client when it comes to sex work and like works hard to like portray that accurately in his films. But Rehash touched on some duality, and I'm going to quote like a sentence they said that I did really like. And they said, just because Ani is an operator doesn't mean she's a girl boss. And just because she's socially shamed does not mean she's downtrodden. So it's like the duality of those things. And it's like those stereotypicals of sex workers. Like she really, like, I really think that she was dynamic in the way where she wasn't just one thing and you saw like all these different sides to her. And it's just sad that like a lot of sex workers don't agree with that, like and a lot of people, and they thought that she was like very one-dimensional and male gazing and all that. And I just feel like it does
I
make
feel
me
like
sad.
that, like similar to when we watched what is it, the Blake Lively one,
It Ends With Us.
Yeah, similar to that. I think it's more of a projection of like how you see people or maybe see yourself, because I think like it showed Ani's like naivety and it also showed her strength and her hustle and like all of those scenes, just like It Ends With Us had like the complexity of the abusive relationship, and then people were mad at the end when he held the baby and whatever. It's like, well, okay, you want someone to be a sinner or a saint, and they're not. They're somewhere in the gray area. They're somewhere in between. This is reality. You know what I'm saying? So I think I agree.
Yeah. And then lastly, so we did ask you guys, do you think Ani was a deeply layered character? And 18% said yes, and 82% said no. So they said no, she's not a deeply layered character.
That's crazy.
I think so too. And like, do I think you have to think critically a little bit about it? Yeah, maybe. But like, honestly, like my comprehension skills are not great. And like, I fully saw it. So I'm just like, you know what I mean?
You also have the lived experience that like makes you relate to it. Whereas like some people may not, which is interesting that like some sex workers didn't get that. And like that to me is more interesting to unpack. Like if you are a sex worker or a stripper and you like watch this movie and you like didn't take that away, please comment. But I think to me, it's lazy viewing to not think that she's a layered character. And it's almost like, but it's also, if you did any research about the movie and know that Sean Baker is a cis heterosexual white man, and then I could see why you would expect her to not be too. Right. So I want to like hold space for that also. But like, I didn't think she was deeply layered until the like second half of the movie.
Right.
So
yeah, I agree. And it's like, I don't know, maybe people wanted it to be more obvious. Like you didn't have to work so hard to think about it. But I don't know. Like, are we like expecting too much? Like at the end of the day, it's like, it's a movie about a sex worker. Woohoo. Like, I like, it's just like, let's just, for what it was.
I think people want it spoon fed to them.
Yeah, I do too.
And not to do the like work
and I think
of it.
like I've thought that before about myself as well. Like I'll include myself in that. But let's watch 2 TikToks. One is kind of about this argument of like her being like a 2-dimensional character. And then one is kind of like, no, she's not. So let's watch the argument that she is a 1-dimensional character first.
In light of its Oscar win, I just rewatched Anora, and something that really stood out to me upon a second watch is how much more Igor is humanized as a character and how much more character depth he receives than Anora herself. I saw a lot of people when she won the Oscar critiquing this and saying that she had such a like 1-dimensional character that they don't think she deserved Best Actress. But I think the fact that we don't see much of her aside from her SW side is intentional by Sean Baker and by Mikey Madison. Anora is an SW. Igor is this lower class immigrant henchman to wealthy people. And this is definitely a movie about classism. But the difference is that because Igor is a man and because he's not in specifically the industry that she is in, he is still allowed more humanization. For example, we know that he lives with his grandmother. We see that he won't give her a pill that she wants because he says that's not what he does. We get the moment where he says that his car is his grandmother's car. We get these constant glances of him like doing these small acts of kindness that are out of his character or out of his career as just the henchman. And we don't get those from Anora until the end because we're not supposed to. She is not allowed any humanization in this world that society and she have created for herself. See at the end of the movie in that like just horrifying end scene when she finally breaks down that she has been putting on this front, and the only side of herself that she seems to know, that she seems to be able to access anymore, is her SW side. I don't agree at all with the take that she was 1-dimensional. I just think that she very accurately portrayed a woman in her industry. I love all of Sean Baker's projects, and I'm really happy with her win because I think it'll just make people watch more of them and shine light on the marginalized communities and people that he tends to humanize.
I was expecting to like hate this take and disagree with her, but I think she's right. Like I think like the way Ani and Anora was portrayed in the film was somewhat 1-dimensional, but specifically like for a reason, because she had to have a harder exterior as a sex worker, being like she was playing a role as Vanya's wife to a certain degree too. So like she's not gonna let her like guard down completely. She knows what she's signing up for. Right. You know, she's not going to be completely vulnerable. She's making a trade here, you know?
Yeah. And it's like and while she's working and like being a sex worker is not about like being your authentic self necessarily either. So that's why it's like, yeah, maybe she was 1-dimensional, but maybe it was on purpose. And like, do I think there should be stories of sex workers that like don't have that like huge tough exterior? Like I do think if you're a sex worker for a long time, like you will get that. Like I think it'll happen, but I think some people like, I don't think I have that. Like maybe I did a little bit. I was a little bit like, but I definitely like don't have that, you know? So I think those stories deserve to be told too. But like Yeah, I think it was purposeful because I definitely see what people are saying. Like, yeah, like we don't know everything about her, and how can that one scene at the end like tell us everything we need to know? But like it did. So I don't
so
know
it's
how to
on
argue.
purpose.
Like it just did. Right. And then this last TikTok too, I really like just kind of talking about like who she is, like what this person got.
The character of Annie, or Anora, is one of the most interesting people I have seen on screen this year. She works at a strip club in New York, lives with her sister in a shabby Brooklyn household, and ends up marrying a billionaire Russian playboy after 2 weeks of whirlwind hedonism. She is smart, she's funny, she's strong, and she gets treated like shit by every person she meets from the halfway point of this movie onward. She is labeled a prostitute, a hooker, and a whore by a group of incompetent rich assholes who want to rip the 4-carat ring off her finger and send her back to a life she thought she'd got out of. Just like their muscle man Igor or their maid Vera, Annie is not a real human being to these other characters. They continuously deny her personhood and treat her like a transaction, until in the end, that seems to be all she can think of herself. She lets herself become the caricature that she's been trying so hard to fight against, because god damn it, maybe that is all she is good for. Until someone stops her, sees her, and the movie ends. I loved it very much, although I do think that it broke me. Here's a picture of me losing my mind after the credits rolled.
I really like how she made the connection between Igor and the maid too, as like people who are dehumanized for their transactional work, like as the henchman and as the maid. But yeah, I think, I don't know if at the end that's the first time she's done that, because I think I would argue that she was kind of doing that with Vanya throughout their relationship too. Like she was like making it, like that's what she does for work. Like she makes a trade for something for money. Right. But yeah, that same feeling at the end of the fucking movie. Yeah. I was crying. I had to sit with it for a minute because it made me think about like, you know, obviously as former sex workers, former strippers, like we have complicated relationships with our sex lives, like with the things that we've done with like whether people will love us or not, as we talked about in the Bop episode, for like, you know, our Bop history, I don't know, whatever. And it's like, just like having someone like hold you for a moment and like see you. And a man is like a moment that like I think so many women, whether you were a former stripper, sex worker, like you said before, like would love to experience, but don't know if we'll ever get.
And it's okay that like a man was there. Like it's okay.
It's healing that it was.
That's what I'm saying. And like that's what I've talked about with like maybe I'll never date another man again. Like I don't know. But like I'm so glad I did, because I swear to God, as tumultuous as that relationship was, it did heal a part of me. I was like, okay, like a man can love me, like kinda or whatever. Like I think he did. I'm gonna like choose to believe that. So I don't know. But yeah, so I just think like, but I do think the whole decentering men is clouding us on what the male gaze really is, like what we're really talking about. Like this is not just like an average rom-com. Like this is like about the sex industry, okay?
And if that moment was there with her by herself, well, first of all, I don't think that moment could have happened without Igor there. And it would have been too girl boss, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, do it again, da 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 da. Like,
and we
need to see her vulnerable. We needed to see her like be able to let her guard down and like be vulnerable.
Right. And it's like what we've talked about too. It's like, and I've talked about like when I like have interactions with men, I like forget like, oh, like we're not at the club. And like, that's like what happened to her. Like she was like, oh my God, you did this thing for me. But then wait, so yeah, it was very emotional, and it is hard for us to talk about. And I feel like I didn't really like share any like personal anecdotes about anything, but I feel like I just didn't. But I just feel like every like sex worker experience is like so different, and at the end of the day, I never had like a fucking like billionaire like take me to his mansion. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much I could relate to. It's really just like the opening credits, and I'm like, and that was like 5 seconds long. Like if I had known that, I would have watched the movie way sooner. I had no idea like what it was really about.
Yeah, same.
But any like movie with like stripper sex work, like we are like a little bit hesitant, you know, which like makes sense because it's a lot visually. But I feel like I can handle literally anything. But that brings us to the end of the episode, guys. So we are going to wrap up now, talk about what we're wet, dry, and a little bit confused about the topic.
Okay, guys, so I'll go first. I'm definitely wet about the end scene. I like won't shut up about it. Like it was healing.
Please
like,
don't.
The end scene.
Nobody else will either.
Her just being able to let her guard down is the fairy tale, I think, to me. And I think that moment is something that a lot of people want.
So, and why are we so clouded that
and why are we
so
in the like
room?
Right, and like the need, you know, post girl boss era for like women to be so hustler, so hard, so tough, so unaffected all the time.
It's tired.
It's tired. Like we need to be able to be vulnerable and around men, I would argue, that we feel safe with or that have proven that we can feel safe around, because I don't want to put the pressure or the emphasis on that women need to like feel safer around men because men need to make us feel safer.
Oh my God.
Be vulnerable around them. But definitely wet. Overall, I'm very wet about the movie. I think the acting was like incredible. I think the movie was like really beautifully done. I was telling Autumn like off camera too, I think it was like an interesting and cool choice that Ani was Russian, because when we worked at the strip club in Boston, there was a good amount of girls from Russia, like Russian immigrants. And I know that that's a thing as well. But yeah, overall just wet about the movie. I think it was a really good story.
Yeah, agreed. And I would say that I'm super wet, like, about the character of Ani herself. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. And I feel like when it comes to Emerson in film school, it's like when you think about a movie or a film, it's like, well, what didn't you like about it? Like, I feel like that's always what I focus on, like trying to find something wrong, because I feel like that's what we did in class, like all the time, you know?
Yeah.
But I just feel like I just loved her character, like simply, like I just thought she was like so, like, I think she had that sort of like childlike like smile that like reminds me of myself, and like a little bit of that naivety, but like paired with like some like just like fucking strong as shit, like
warrior, like Anora.
Yes, like a warrior, like built for like change, and can really just, and I like wish I had that. Like I envy that, and it's like I feel like she had to get that based on her experience. But yeah, I loved her as a character. I'm wet that like I didn't get triggered by the movie. Like I was really into it. And like I love like strip club art, like art about the strip club. Like I really, really, really love it. And I didn't put this in the outline too, but it is notable that like a lot of like Oscar winners like have been about movies about women as sex workers, like as far back as like the beginning of time.
Wow.
So it's just interesting.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like there were some TikToks where it's like the past like however many Oscars, it's like they all play a sex worker. Like the movie Poor Things with Emma Stone, I think is also about sex work, and that movie was fucking everywhere. It's like they blow the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that too. But yeah, just wet about the storytelling, you know, even like Sean Baker being the director, like I feel like old me would just completely like rule that out and be like, that's horrible. But like I watch interviews of him, it's like I don't know him, we don't know his intentions, but like all of his films like have these consistent themes of like humanizing marginalized groups like immigrants and sex workers, like, you know what I mean? And like I do think that he's an amazing film director. Do I think he's perfect? No, not at all. And like apparently like there were like sex workers there to like see the storytelling process and like be involved in some way. But I do think like true authentic stories like should come from sex workers themselves too. But there are movies out there, but we wet about like realizing that like we need it in the mainstream too, though. And he can use his power in that way, and he is. So what about that?
Yes. For dry, I'm definitely dry about our confusion, misinterpretation of the male gaze that's going on, because it's frustrating, I think, especially with the infighting in the feminist community and like people who want to be included in like feminism, gender equality, women's empowerment, all of those things. And then we end up with this infighting, which to some degree, like you need infighting discourse to grow the movement forward. But like we seem to have gone back a couple steps when like anything male related. It just, to me, it lacks reading comprehension. It lacks media literacy. It lacks critical thinking. And I'm fucking sick of it. But I also understand that the education in America is not great. We all know Trump's about to defund or has already the Department of Education. Like public schools aren't, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to like realize that access to education is limited. We had a great education and bachelor's degree. So I want to clock my privilege there.
Right.
But I do wish more people did their research on the male gaze situation. And I think that's really all that I'm dry about.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would agree with all of that. I feel like I'm definitely dry on like people looking at Ani as like a one-dimensional character. And again, I did see TikToks that I'll put in the sources of like sex workers saying that like they felt like she was one-dimensional. They felt like Igor being in the car in that scene was a disservice. Like they wanted that intimate moment with like just her and the camera and like whatever and like her feelings. But I think that's okay. Like, it's all right that you got that from that. Like, that's not a bad thing. And I feel like what you're saying about people just projecting and like based on their experiences, and it's like, it makes sense. But that's what I think is like beautiful about films too. It's like everyone's always going to have a different takeaway, like for sure. But like, I am just dry that people weren't like able to see like who she really was as much. And I don't think you had to work that hard to figure it out. Like I think she was deeply layered, and we didn't talk about it, bro, but the scene where she was just like nonstop yelling and was like, hello. Yeah. And like people like in like film terms or like an article I read, they called it like a pot boiler scene where it's like everyone's improv yelling and like you don't really know what's happening. Like it's kind of disorienting a lot. And apparently Sean Baker like has a lot of that in his films, like these sort of pot boilers. Okay. But Mikey Madison said like, you know, it was important that she was like, I just didn't want her to stop talking in that scene at all. And it's like, I do believe, like I went back and forth. I'm like, did she really like use her voice? And like, I think she did. Like even in the beginning, like her just with like setting boundaries, like sit on your hands or like this, like that's not
go to the
ATM to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not easy. Like you have to like learn how to do that because like as a woman and like being in that dominant position of like, no, like this is what we're gonna do or we're not gonna do anything is not an easy thing to do. And we saw her do that effortlessly with ease in the first half of the film. But anyways, yeah, so I don't know, like I'm just dry that people weren't able to see that because I thought that she was loud and proud and like I was with her. Like she is the star of that movie to me, and she was supposed to be, but a lot of people are like, you know, she wasn't.
Yeah,
but
fuck 'em.
Yeah.
Fuck them. For confused, I think I'm the most confused about the assault situation. Was it assault? Was it not?
Bro, I feel like it was.
I honestly feel like in like human terms, outside of it being a film, it would be assault. Like, you know, it's not every day that people break into your home and like tie you up and like whatever. But I think that we're talking about a fairy tale, a story or whatever. And it was a very specific plot device and also like character setup between Igor and Ani and their like tension and also like, you know, symbolic of like him. You know, like, I think it was for that, but I think it is easy for us to get caught up in like, well, if this happened in regular life, it would be weird and assault because like who has henchmen that tie people up with like telephone cords? Like what the fuck? So I'm a little bit confused about that because I obviously don't want to like say it's okay to assault people. But I like clearly don't think that. I think it was a storytelling device. I think that's what my takeaway is. But I still am a little confused about it.
And it's like within the universe of like the sex industry and like people with a lot of money It's like shit like this like happens all the time. And then maybe you do have a weird moment where you like almost get assaulted, but like you didn't. And then you end up liking him, and how weird that must feel. Like that, it's just like, it's telling us something. Yeah. For sure. And people need to tune the fucking, but I feel like for confused, I feel like the most confusing part of the whole thing for me is like the whole Cinderella story, because like, I watched it just like you. I didn't like read anything. Like, it was before I did all the research, and like I wasn't thinking Cinderella story. Like, I was thinking like inner story, like we're on a journey, we're working through things. Like, nothing about it was Cinderella to me at all up until we analyzed it and was like, no, this Cinderella story was like, you know, she got a taste of like, yeah, like maybe she is someone that would be her Cinderella story of like having a lot of like money and expensive things and like all of this. But also, and then we were like, no, maybe the Cinderella story is her and Igor, like the one of a man that was able to make her feel safe and seen. But then it's like, no, the Cinderella story was actually inward, and like her realizing that like this has been a lot and she has a lot that she's gonna need to work through. That is what, like, Cinderella story, because even Rehash was all like, Igor was Prince Charming, and like I was rooting for that, and I'm like, but like, and I want to include the love story like in the movie about sex work, so we got more going on that's not just that, you know? Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys, like
he doesn't need to be romantic.
Love.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, him being the man, human being in that scenario was like, they don't need to fall in love. He just needs to be nice to her and do that for her.
And why do we want them to so bad?
Right.
Like they let's just calm down. Like, he just assaulted her 2 days ago. Like, they're not, like, why are we like glamorizing him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, in a weird way. But yeah, I just think like he served a purpose, and like we're clear on what it is, but like some people are not. But yeah, that about does it for this episode, guys. Let us know what you thought about Anora or anything that we said in the comments below on YouTube or Spotify. You can subscribe and or follow, like the video, give us a rating on platforms like Apple or Spotify as well. And we do post polls for every single episode every week over on our Instagram at So Wet So Dry. The O's are zeros, so make sure you're following us there too. You can always DM us with any topic suggestions or anything you want us to talk about on the podcast.
Yes, we also have listener support. It's $9.99, $4.99, or 99 cents a month. It is in the bottom of the description of every single episode, no matter what platform you guys are listening on. And yeah, we love you guys so fucking much. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
You can go now.
I thought I might stay over tonight.
Oh, but I don't want you here.
Yeah.